They sang in chains. The true story of Richard and Sabina Wurmbrand. The guards heard singing from the underground cells. A man with no light, no freedom, but a voice they couldn't silence. It came from the deepest part of Jilava prison, where men disappeared and names were erased. But that night, someone was singing. No instruments. No light. Just a pastor stripped of everything but faith, singing through concrete and steel. It was Richard Wurmbrand, humming hymns he remembered from childhood. And miles away, in another kind of prison, his wife Sabina knelt in a dark room whispering the same song, praying for the husband she hadn't seen in years. They were separated by walls and silence. But the same melody filled both prisons, one of concrete, the other of loneliness. They sang because faith had survived what fear could not. And because love, even in chains, still has a voice. Before the darkness. Before the barbed wire and interrogations, they were simply Richard and Sabina. He was a Lutheran pastor in Bucharest. Thoughtful. Eloquent. Eyes that always looked past what was seen. She was radiant. Fierce. A Jewish believer who had found Christ and never looked back. They loved laughter, poetry, and the narrow streets of the old city. They also loved the underground church, the one that met in basements and barns. When faith became too dangerous to be public. In 1944, Romania lay caught between two tyrannies. First the Nazis, then the Communists. Richard had already been arrested once by the Gestapo for preaching hope to his Jewish brothers and sisters. He survived that war, only to watch another rise, one that promised equality, but demanded silence about God. Sabina saw what was coming. "You will be arrested again," she told him quietly. "And I will lose you." Richard smiled gently. "If I do not speak, I would lose myself." They both knew what that meant. To remain silent was safer. But to speak truth was obedience. And for them, obedience always outweighed safety. The Congress of Lies. February 29, 1948. Communist officials summoned all clergy to a Congress of Cults. In the Grand Hall, hundreds of pastors, priests, and bishops gathered as cameras flashed. One by one, they rose to praise the new regime, thanking the party for protecting religion, swearing loyalty to Stalin above scripture. Sabina sat beside Richard, trembling. Her nails dug into his hand. As another priest stood to declare that Christianity and communism could coexist, she leaned toward her husband and whispered, "Richard, stand up and wash the shame from the face of Christ." He turned to her, whispering back, "If I do that, you will lose your husband." Her eyes filled but did not waver. "I don't need a coward for a husband," she said softly. Go and do it. Richard stood. The hall fell silent. And with a calm voice that cut through fear, he said, "Our loyalty cannot be given to men who deny God. We worship Christ alone." For a moment, you could hear nothing but the echo of his words. Then applause, faint but growing, rose from the back rows. From the few brave souls who remembered who they served. That speech would cost him everything. The arrest. Days later, Richard kissed Sabina goodbye on the street outside their home. They had just finished smuggling Bibles into workers' meetings. He promised he would return before evening. But as he walked away, a black car pulled alongside. Two men stepped out. Hands in pockets. Faces without expression. One word: come. He never came home that night. Or the next. Or the one after that. Sabina waited for news, but none came. For weeks, she asked every prison, every station, every guard she could find. Each shook their head or turned away. Richard had become what the secret police called a ghost. No record. No trial. No name. For Sabina, silence became a second prison. Her husband had vanished into the system, and she had no way to prove he still existed. One winter morning, a friend arrived with a whisper. "He's alive. He's in the underground cells. They beat him daily, but he's still preaching." Sabina pressed the note to her heart and wept. Not because he was suffering, but because that was exactly what she had prayed, not that he would be spared, but that he would remain faithful. Sabina's cross. It wasn't long before the regime came for her too. They accused her of aiding the underground church, of spreading Western poison. She was sent to a labor camp along the Danube. Freezing, brutal, endless. The women crushed stones and hauled bricks until their hands bled. One night, a guard mocked her faith. "Where is your God now, pastor's wife?" he jeered. Sabina looked up from the mud and said quietly, "He is here, in this camp, loving even you." The guard cursed and turned away. But years later, when Sabina returned to that place, that same man found her. Tears in his eyes, he said, "I could never forget those words. I began to pray." That was who she was. Love in defiance of hatred. Forgiveness where there should have been fury. And somewhere in the same land, beneath the same gray sky, Richard lived out the same faith in different chains. The underground years. The cell was always dark. No windows. No clocks. No sound except the drip of water and the shuffle of boots above. Richard spent 14 years in communist prisons. 3 of them in solitary confinement, a coffin-sized room with walls so thick that even his own heartbeat felt loud. The guards had a rule: no talking, no singing, no praying aloud. If anyone was caught whispering scripture, they were beaten. So the prisoners learned a new language, the language of silence. Richard tapped verses in Morse code on the wall. Others answered with hymns tapped back, small, rhythmic echoes of faith traveling through stone. When new prisoners arrived, the first question they asked was, "Do you know any songs?" Because in that place, songs were sermons, and humming was resistance. They smuggled communion bread made of crumbs, hid it in hollow soap bars. They preached with eyes, prayed with sighs, and loved one another without words. One day a guard burst in and shouted, "Why are you singing?" Richard, half starved, half smiling, answered quietly, "Because Christ is still alive." The man struck him across the face. Blood ran down, but the song continued. And the prisoners, all of them, joined in. They sang until the guards fled the room, unable to bear the sound of hope. Sabina's return. When Sabina was finally released, her body was frail, but her spirit had sharpened into steel. The war had ended. The occupation had changed its flags. But oppression remained. She walked through Bucharest asking for Richard's name. For years, the answer was the same: he does not exist. Still, she refused to leave Romania. Every night she left a lamp burning in their window, a silent signal to a man who might never come home. 7 years passed. Then one afternoon, a stranger knocked at her door. A thin man in rags. Beard matted. Eyes hollow. "Do you know me?" he whispered. Sabina froze. And then she ran, past the disbelief, past the years, into his arms. The lamp in the window had done its work. The light had guided him home. They wept for a long time. He was a skeleton of the man she'd married. She was a survivor marked by hunger and loss. But when they finally spoke, Richard said simply, "Let us forgive them all, Sabina. We must not hate the communists. They are the ones most in need of Christ." And she, who had prayed through every night of his absence, nodded. Because love had already taught her that lesson. The decision to stay. Most who suffered that long would have fled. But Richard began preaching again, the same sermons that had once put him in chains. Secret churches gathered in basements, whispering hymns, memorizing scraps of scripture. Sabina traveled beside him, carrying worn Bibles under loaves of bread. In 1959, he was arrested a second time. 9 more years. 9 more years of interrogation, hunger, and darkness. He prayed for his torturers by name. He said later, "It was not hard to die for Christ. It was hard to live for Him, in a cell that never saw the sun." But even then, he dreamed of revival. He told other prisoners, "One day, we will tell the world what happened here, not for pity, but for faith." Freedom and testimony. In 1965, under international pressure, Richard was released once more, bought out of prison for $10,000. He and Sabina fled to the West, carrying little more than scars and conviction. They could have rested. They could have built a quiet life. Instead, they became voices for the voiceless. They founded an organization to help persecuted Christians, Voice of the Martyrs, and began traveling the world, speaking of those still behind bars. At one conference, a reporter asked Richard, "How can you speak kindly of the men who tortured you?" He answered, "If the suffering I endured brought one of them to Christ, it was worth it." And beside him, Sabina smiled, because she knew that this was the same man she'd sent to wash the shame from the face of Christ so many years ago. And he had done it, not once, but for a lifetime. The legacy of light. Richard lived to see communism crumble. Sabina lived to see churches rebuilt on the soil where their blood had fallen. When people asked her how they endured, she said, "Love is the strongest force in the world. It makes prisons into sanctuaries." And when Richard was asked what he had learned from 14 years of chains, he replied, "The communists were not our enemies. Our real enemy was hate." They never stopped singing, even when their voices trembled with age. Their home was filled with the same hymns once whispered in the dark. When Richard died in 2001 and Sabina a few years later, friends said it felt like the end of an era. But their story did not end with their deaths. It continued in every believer who still sings through suffering. In every hidden church that remembers their courage. Because faith like theirs is contagious. And love like theirs still echoes in the prisons of the world. Their story didn't end in prisons, it began there. It became a movement that still sings across nations. The story of Richard and Sabina Wurmbrand is not a tale of heroes. It is the story of ordinary hearts made extraordinary by grace. They were bruised but unbroken. Chained yet free. Hated but never silenced. Their chains became instruments. Their scars became testimonies. And in the deepest darkness, they discovered what Scripture had promised all along. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. That light still shines. In underground churches. In hidden cells. In every heart that chooses love over fear. So here's the question their story leaves us with. What chains are we wearing that we've mistaken for prisons? What songs are we refusing to sing because we're afraid of the cost? What love are we withholding because hate feels safer? Comment below. The light still shines. Because faith that sings in chains will always outlive the walls that try to contain it. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to Mustard Seed Stories, where every week, we share real stories of pain, endurance, and grace. Stories that remind us, even when the world tries to silence faith, love still finds a song.